Police are investigating who shot and killed an MIT professor in his home in Brookline. Police say they found Dr. Nuno Loureiro in his home on Gibbs Street.
Loureiro's death raises significant questions about potential motives beyond random violence. As director of MIT's leading fusion research center, Loureiro oversaw work with direct national security implications. Fusion energy research is a critical component of US energy independence strategy, and the Plasma Science and Fusion Center conducts research contracted with the Department of Energy. The timing of his assassination, May 2024 appointment, January 2025 presidential honor, December 2025 death, creates an arc of rising prominence and visibility. Security analysts note that targeted assassination of scientific leaders is not unprecedented. Iranian nuclear scientists have been targeted in precision operations. Russian critics in the West have been poisoned. Chinese defectors have been hunted.
You start with Kuala Lumpur. That's where this flight was flying, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, on March 7th, 2014, and it's flying northeast to Beijing. 40 minutes into the flight, suddenly the plane goes dark, and it's actually loaded up with 20 semiconductor engineers that are connected to a U.S. defense company. A lot of people were even speculating that Diego Garcia might be like Area 51. I mean, it's a good place to test stuff as well. The company was actually even more suspicious. It turns out they were like $7 billion in debt. And their owners, the equity holders, were some pretty interesting companies. I think BlackRock Group was one of them. So when the company got bought out the next year, all those equity holders, all that, they would have lost a bunch of money. All of a sudden, they made out just fine. And the technology that company was working on was, advanced microchips. One of the things that you find when you really start to dig into advanced technology right away is, when it comes to energy sources, what people are really doing now is they're doing microchips. Like Sonny White, who was on Joe Rogan recently, Garrett Modell, even Paul Thibodeau. He started making waves in the scientific community a few years ago. These guys are all working on like nanoscale devices that manipulate the quantum vacuum in a way to produce energy asymmetrically, basically free energy from a little microchip. And we're looking at a future in the next few years where those microchips are going to be in our phones, and our phones aren't going to run on energy anymore. Like, we're never going to have to be plugged in again. People aren't going to understand how that's even possible. But that's an example of the reason why these engineers on this plane would have been so high value. The official story, or the story we're being told in the public at least, we picked up some satellite pings from this point here where we lost military radar contact with the plane, flew for 5 hours, until it got to the South Indian Ocean, and then it must have run out of fuel, and then it must have hit the ocean and sunk into the ocean. That's what we're being led to believe. The story that I present, or at least the story the videos present that have reemerged, is that point in the Nicobar Islands is where this operation was conducted on the plane, where we have 2 drones, one above it, one next to it, and that we see, I think, a weapon being deployed against the plane. And then subsequently, we got a cover up because...
Explain what we're seeing here.
Initially, we thought this was a satellite video because it looks like we're watching this airplane from really far away. The thing that was the major breakthrough was realizing this is wide area motion imagery, WAMI. So WAMI, wide area motion imagery, is actually made to look like satellite video. That's why it looks like satellite video. So what it is, though, is there's a drone. And this is called Gorgon Stare, the version that we're looking at here, Gorgon Stare Increment 2. There's an MQ-9 Reaper drone above the plane, much higher above the plane. This plane is flying very low. We can tell because of these clouds on the screen. These clouds are cumulus clouds. That's the ocean underneath as well. This is a very low flying plane. It's a huge field of view. So this drone is actually mapping like about a 100 square kilometer area of the ocean. And someone can interact with it and they can press on the screen and it pulls up a window. We are looking at one of those windows. Yeah, and the orbs lock in, and they're using magnetism to lock in like this. So why can they create a perfect triangle like that? Because it's magnet inversion, positive and minus magnetic or electromagnetic charge, and it creates an equilibrium. And they're just locking into a certain equilibrium. And it must be I think, a teleportation protocol. Like, now that the orbs are in this vertical formation, spinning around the plane, they're spinning counterclockwise around the plane. The plane just disappears. From a perspective of what those videos represent, in terms of wormholes or in that kind of technology, this is the stakes.
What we're seeing here is the start point. The question really to me is what is this first drone? Why is it zoomed in? Why did somebody select and zoom in on this commercial aircraft? At the same time, why would a Predator drone be tracking any aircraft, but especially this one?
When people start to see there's two videos and start to immediately kind of connect that they look like they're in perfect sync, just from an eye perspective. But
they've been highly evaluated to be in sync.
Now at this point, we know they are definitely in perfect sync with one another. But at that point, people are just eyeballing it. And you see these two videos are in perfect synchronization. And now we have another one from a horizontal angle. The first one looked like it was from a satellite. It was even called satellite video. So it even probably fooled the person who was leaking it on the internet. The second video, now we're looking at it horizontally, and we're looking at this camera. We can tell there's a human operating the camera. It's not an AI. We can see the person struggling to keep the plane in view. And this is the part where, I think this is the first wall that has to fall down for most people, because they say, why are they recording? There's only one answer for why they're recording. I mean, can you think of any other ones? There's only one in my mind. It has to be an operation. Yeah. That's the only reason. And when I found out that the satellite video was actually Sierra Nevada Corporation's wide area motion imagery Gorgon stare capabilities, that's where I went, okay, it's definitely an operation. It was definitely all pre-planned. This one is more important than the first video just because of all the details that it shows in this color FLIR. People didn't even know we had color FLIR capability. You can just clearly see the nose of the Reaper drone as well. The orbs themselves, it's fun to see how they lock in. I mean, it's not fun because of what happened to 239 people, but the technology is amazing. The color of the orb is super important. It changes from all green to becoming blue and green or a little bit of yellow. And that's because these things are little fusion reactors. They're little compact fusion reactors covered in a ball of plasma, and it's just a magnetic field that's confining the plasma. And we see these dark lines in front of the orbs. This is also another indicator that this is a little ball of plasma that's a fusion reactor. These lines in front and behind the orbs, this is consistent with a field reverse configuration in fusion. Field reverse configuration in fusion has two axial jets that shoot out of either end. So essentially what they've done here is they've turned some of these old scramjet engine designs into a heat exchange where there's a fusion reaction happening in the middle of those plasma orbs. And they create a plasma bubble around them through the extremely powerful magnetic fields that they have. And the big problem in fusion is confining all the plasma. They can't keep it all perfectly confined. But what they found is, okay, well, don't try to keep it all perfectly confined. Let it shoot out in a jet. And you can control that jet for propulsion. And if this sounds crazy, well, I thought it was crazy too until I started reading the DIRDs, the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents, those papers I was talking about, the ones that are the Pentagon secret papers. In those papers, they talk about negative mass propulsion, but also aneutronic fusion propulsion. Aneutronic fusion propulsion. And I went, I think that's what we're seeing here. And now I'm almost certain that's what we're seeing. Aneutronic fusion propulsion and also air-breathing magnetohydrodynamics, which basically means you can ionize the air itself, turn the air into a plasma, extracting the hydrogen basically out of it, turn that into a plasma and use that as your fuel. Use that as your fuel source in a fusion reactor. And what that means is now you don't need these big rocket tanks to hold all your fuel anymore because you use the air itself as the fuel. And that's what they've done here. And so this would imply that this, that's not alien technology, but it's just technology so far beyond where we're currently thinking right now, where we think fusion is another 20, 30 years away. Meanwhile, you've got the Air Force or Lockheed Martin. Those are the people that I've kind of tagged as the people who would have built these. They've got three-dimensional stabilization. They've got, fly-by-wire AI navigation here at this point. We've got fusion to the point where we've got magnetic field strengths that can perfectly confine our plasma. And then we've also potentially got right there some type of gravitational weapon. That's what I would call that. When you see something zip out like it's going through a mirror, that's essentially dropping through our plane of reality to this extra dimension, and now you're just popping up somewhere else. Just folding your paper in half, right? You fold the paper in half, And that's how all the wormholes are essentially explained. Now, two last things I'll point out. The orbs, why are they spinning around the plane? The way they spin around the plane determines if it's going to go backwards or forwards. And also they spin because a spinning wormhole reduces the negative energy requirement. So this is one of the scientific papers basically says a spinning wormhole reduces it. And also the shape, the triangle shape reduces it. It's a polyhedral wormhole. So you could imagine connecting, just like connecting the dots. You create this shape, and what this does is because all you're doing is moving this flat face, this cutout, that minimizes the energy requirement as well for your wormhole. So whoever developed that, this isn't their first try at doing this. Like they've been experimenting and perfecting it, figuring out, exactly what the minimum energy requirement is to pull that off. And I think it's personally connected to nuke. So right in the beginning of this, you can see the nose of the drone. In fact, we actually weren't sure if it was an MQ-9 or an MQ-1C, but I think now we've settled on MQ-9. It's got a slightly longer wingspan. And this would be hard point number 5.